Anyone interested in the field of economics will sooner or later ask, how do economies work? The answer to this question is telling in that it will influence how the student learns. Will the student be exposed initially to all constituent parts of an economy in hopes of gaining a better understanding? Or will the student be offered something that is, perhaps, more targeted? Up until now, the answer seems to be that to understand how an economy works, one must examine all moving parts. This approach, it is felt, needs to be reconsidered. The purpose here will be to suggest an approach to this question that will not only show how an economy works but will make the learning process more meaningful and perhaps more satisfying. So, let's get started. To the question, how do economies work? We'll start with a thought experiment. Let's say we had to explain to a person that lived 200 or 300 years ago how a gas-powered automobile works. Where would you begin? We might point out where to sit and which pedal to push, but does that really explain how the automobile works? You may be showing that person how to operate the vehicle, but you are not establishing the principle of motion, unless you're referencing the pistons and the crankshaft. You are not addressing first principle. When the student poses the question of how an economy works, the assumption must be that the person is actually trying to understand the principles specific to economics that requires an economy to perform the way it does. The student is not asking about laws specific to finance, and the student is not asking about how economies are managed. When the student asks, how do economies work? They are more likely intending to ask, what makes an economy work? And so, that is the question that will be addressed here. Consider this. In any economy, there are basically two types of actors that propels all activity: the household and the business firm, and both have wants and needs. For the household, it's food, clothing, and shelter. For the business firm, it's the ability to make a profit. These two financial actors are locked into a type of symbiotic relationship where they are dependent upon one another for survival, and it is here where the core principle of an economy is to be discovered. Just as the downward motion of the piston in the internal combustion engine turns the crankshaft into rotary motion and propels an automobile forward, demand for goods and services engages the business community and propels an economy. Consumer demand is the catalyst that makes an economy work. Without an adequate demand, both households and business firms lose. For those interested in economics as a profession, designing policies that ensures for a measured amount of consumer demand is the task. A measured amount is necessary in that, with too much demand, accelerating inflation becomes possible, and with too little demand, full employment, which is one of the objectives of any economy, becomes less likely. Ensuring for a measured amount of money within an economy is the first principle of economics. The measured amount is based on a forecast of where the economy is currently and where it is likely to be at some point in the future, say next quarter. Allowing an annual budget to set that amount will often fail to deliver. Budgets are critical to the discipline of finance, but economies that enjoy a sovereign currency such as we have in the US work on principles not directly correlated to finance. The measured amount of money in circulation must be found in a forecast and not a financial budget. Consumer demand is what makes an economy work. It is the catalyst from which all else is derived. An understanding of this principle gives the economist not only a focus on which to operate, it gives voters who understand its potential a better chance of making an informed decision. If we are to become a more enlightened electorate and ensure our own collective well-being, we must all have a better understanding of what makes an economy work and, in turn, learn to make the economy work for us all. Join me on Substack for more on this topic and other topics with an economic focus. Sign up for my free newsletter.